Imagine sitting on a plane, ready for takeoff. The engines roar. The aircraft begins accelerating down the runway. Everything seems normal. Then suddenly, out of the thick fog ahead, another Boeing 747 appears directly in front of you. There is no time to stop, no time to turn, no time to escape. Seconds later, two giant jumbo jets collide in a massive explosion. In just moments, 583 people lose their lives. To this day, it remains the deadliest accident in aviation history. But what makes this tragedy truly terrifying is that it was completely preventable. This is the story of the Tenerife Airport Disaster, the day a single misunderstanding changed aviation forever. March 27, 1977. A beautiful island in the Canary Islands. Tourists from around the world were arriving for vacations. Among them were passengers aboard two massive Boeing 747 jumbo jets, one operated by KLM, the other by Pan Am. Nobody on board knew they were about to become part of the deadliest disaster aviation had ever seen. What happened that day wasn't caused by terrorism, it wasn't caused by a mechanical failure, and it wasn't caused by bad weather alone. Instead, it was a chain reaction of small mistakes, mistakes that slowly built toward catastrophe, and by the time anyone realized the danger, it was already too late. Earlier that day, a bomb exploded at Gran Canaria Airport. Authorities feared another attack. The airport immediately shut down. Flights scheduled to land there suddenly needed somewhere else to go. One of those flights was KLM Flight 4805. Another was Pan Am Flight 1736. Both aircraft were diverted to a much smaller airport, Los Rodeos Airport on Tenerife. Normally, this airport handled relatively light traffic. Now it was suddenly overwhelmed. Large aircraft began filling parking areas. Taxiways became crowded. Operations became complicated. Nobody knew it yet, but the stage for disaster had already been set. Los Rodeos Airport wasn't designed for so many jumbo jets. Aircraft parked everywhere. Taxi routes became restricted. Controllers were under pressure. Pilots were frustrated. Passengers were tired. Then another problem appeared. Fog. Thick fog. Dangerous fog. Visibility started changing minute by minute. One moment you could see clearly. The next moment, aircraft disappeared into a white wall. For pilots and controllers alike, it created a nightmare situation. Yet operations continued. Everyone wanted to leave. Everyone wanted to get home. And time was running out. The captain of the KLM aircraft wasn't an ordinary pilot. He was one of the airline's most respected instructors. Thousands of pilots had learned from him. His reputation was exceptional. But on this day, he faced unusual pressure. Duty time regulations were becoming a concern. The crew had already experienced delays. The airport remained crowded. Fuel calculations became complicated. To avoid potential problems later, the captain decided to refuel in Tenerife. That decision created additional delays. Meanwhile, the fog became even worse. As frustration increased, so did the pressure to depart quickly. And pressure can influence even the most experienced professionals. Eventually, both aircraft prepared for departure. The KLM aircraft moved toward the runway. The Pan Am aircraft followed behind. Because taxiways were blocked, both planes needed to use the runway itself for taxiing. That alone created risk. Controllers issued instructions. Pilots acknowledged instructions. Radio transmissions overlapped. Static interrupted messages. Words became unclear. Then came one of the most infamous exchanges in aviation history. The KLM captain believed he had clearance for takeoff, but the tower had not actually cleared him. A critical misunderstanding was forming, yet nobody realized it. The KLM aircraft turned onto the runway. The captain pushed the throttles forward. The giant Boeing 747 began accelerating. Passengers felt the familiar sensation of takeoff. Meanwhile, the Pan Am aircraft was still on the same runway, hidden inside dense fog, unable to see the approaching danger. Inside the tower, controllers couldn't see either aircraft. Radar systems capable of preventing the disaster didn't yet exist at that airport. Everyone was essentially blind, and two fully loaded jumbo jets were moving toward each other. As the KLM aircraft accelerated, the Pan Am crew suddenly saw lights emerging from the fog. At first, they couldn't understand what they were seeing. Then reality hit. A Boeing 747 was charging directly toward them. The Pan Am captain screamed a warning. The crew desperately attempted to turn off the runway. At the same time, the KLM captain spotted the Pan Am aircraft. He pulled back hard, trying to lift off early, trying to avoid impact, trying to save hundreds of lives. But it was too late. The KLM aircraft became airborne for a brief moment. Its landing gear and engines slammed into the Pan Am jet. The collision created an enormous fireball, one of the largest explosions ever seen in aviation. The KLM aircraft crashed and exploded. Everyone on board died. The Pan Am aircraft was torn apart. Some passengers survived initially. Many escaped through holes in the fuselage. Others never had a chance. When rescue teams arrived, the scale of destruction was unimaginable. 583 people lost their lives. Aviation history had changed forever. The Tenerife Airport Disaster remains the deadliest aviation accident ever recorded. Not because of technology, not because of sabotage, but because of human factors. Miscommunication, pressure, assumptions, and a few misunderstood words. The tragedy transformed aviation worldwide. Standardized phraseology was introduced. Cockpit communication procedures were improved. Crew resource management training became essential. Every airline pilot today learns lessons from Tenerife, because those lessons were written in tragedy. And they remind us that in aviation, sometimes the smallest mistake can have the biggest